will call tonight's meeting to order. I'll start with a couple of moments about logistics. Anyone who's joining us remotely, I would ask you to change your name display to your first and last name so we know who we're talking to. And if you are addressing the council, we would ask you to state your name and where you live. And if you wish to speak, you must be called on by the mayor. Once you're called on, you may make a statement or ask questions. And we'd ask you to keep your comments to 5 minutes. If you speak out of turn or go on too long, you may be interrupted and asked to adjust your comments or behavior. And we've been doing this at the beginning of each of our meetings. The City Council affirms its shared commitment to a respectful and professional environment. We do not support negative or personal comments directed at city staff or department heads. We ask that all remarks remain focused on issues, policies, and solutions. This expectation supports productive dialogue and reflects our respect and appreciation for those who serve our community. And speaking of those who serve our community, it's my pleasure to introduce to you all our new city manager, Kelly McNicholas Curry. Kelly's been on the job for 1 week and 1 day, and it's great. I've already had a number of meetings with Kelly. I think she's off to a great start. And if you have anything you'd like to say at this point, you get a chance to make your report later.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm very pleased to be here at my first city council meeting with you all, and I've enjoyed our one-on-one conversations. Thank you all for making time for me in the first week to help orient me to the city and to the job. And I do think we're off to a good start. I look forward to reporting out later, and I know we have a lot of work ahead, and I look forward to helping shepherd that through on your and community behalf.
Great. All right. We need to approve the agenda. Without any objection, we'll consider the agenda approved. Now time for general business and appearances. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to address the council on any topic, either on the agenda or off the agenda. We have a couple of public hearings scheduled tonight, and so for those public hearings, you may also address the council during those public hearings. Other than that, anything you'd like to say about anything that's on the agenda, this public comment period is the time to do it. Is there anyone in the room who'd like to be heard? Steve, and then I'll get to you next.
No.
Yes, sir. Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Michael LeDuc and I live on Berry Street. I'm one of the organizers with Montpelier Apartheid-Free Community Campaign. My motivation for being an anti-war activist stems from my experiences as serving as a Marine infantryman in Iraq and elsewhere. From 2003 to 2007. I began by speaking against U.S. military occupation of Iraq and Afghanistan, and today I speak against U.S.-backed Israeli occupation of Palestine. With town meeting next week, I wanted to say a few things about AFC. We are asking Montpelier residents to vote for Article 12, which is a resolution to adopt a community pledge, which reads as follows. We affirm our freedom. We affirm our commitment to freedom, justice, and equality for the Palestinian people and all people. We oppose all forms of racism, bigotry, discrimination, and oppression. We declare ourselves an apartheid-free community, and to that end, we pledge to join others to work to end all support for Israel's apartheid regime, settler colonialism, and military occupation. Last year, 5 Vermont towns, which have recently been joined by a 6th, Shaftesbury, elected to adopt this pledge, and this has led to continuing local discussion and action to realize an apartheid-free community in Vermont. One tangible example of this is the subsequent material action is the town of Bedford's decision to divest from the Caterpillar Tractor Company, as Caterpillar is a high-profile provider of equipment to the IDF. In accordance with this pledge, Apartheid-Free Montpelier is also working in solidarity with organizations such as Migrant Justice to support each other in dealing with the ongoing oppression of Vermont residents right now by DHS. We also have the endorsements of other allied organizations such as Jewish Voice for Peace, Rural Vermont, and Code Pink. For anyone interested in learning more, we will be hosting an informational session at the Kellogg Hubbard Library this Saturday from 3 to 4:30, Saturday the 28th. Also, some of our members and supporters are performing a live concert at Naive Melody the evening prior, Friday the 27th, and that's doors at 7, starts 7:30. Our contact email address is afcmontpelier@gmail.com, all lowercase. And I'll finish by asking, again, voters to vote to say yes to Article 12. And we look forward to working with City Council and realizing an end to local community complicity with apartheid as a town and community. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve.
Steve Whitaker, Montpelier. The Superior Court dismissed my attempt to enforce the city's purchasing policy. It did not rule that the city complied with the policy. It ruled that I individually cannot enforce it. My open meeting and public record violation claims remain active. So enforcement of your own procurement policy is now on you. It is not foreseeable that the Attorney General is going to step in and enforce overdue integrity on this body. That responsibility sits here. In 2022, the city entered into a project management contract with White & Burke for Country Club Road, including management of consultants and subcontractors. In 2023, the Country Club Road actionable plan stated that a phase 2 master planning process with public engagement was a necessary next step. The actionable plan itself was not adopted for more than 2 years. When it finally was adopted in 2025, it had been reframed, a different concept plan, and the phase 2 master planning process was gone. At the same time, the Planning Commission was effectively told by Miller not to incorporate meaningful Country Club Road detail into the city plan. So the public was sidelined in both ways. The statutory city plan document does not meaningfully incorporate Country Club Road, and the actionable plan, master planning process that was supposed to shape it was eliminated. Then, after the May 28, 2025 vote, removing phase 2, the city plan went back to the Planning Commission for a required statutory consistency review. During that remand, the commission was not informed that phase 2 had been eliminated. Later, commissioners themselves stated that they felt sidelined and disenfranchised from CCR planning, that the council and subcommittee had taken it over. So instead of restoring the legal planning framework, the city layered something else on top. An October 8th exclusive brokerage agreement, sole sourced with long tail contingent fee provisions with the same firm already under contract since 22 for project management. One could argue they didn't manage very well if our brownfield is in the state it's in. The contracts overlap, the latter does not supersede. The brokerage incentives conflict structurally with the project management role. That is not clean governance. And now you're advancing an RFP and contemplating transfer of roughly 20 acres of multi-million-dollar public land for $1. At the same time, the city's handling of public records, appeals, and executive session practice has become increasingly defensive and opaque. Broad claims of litigation exemption are being invoked to hide time-sensitive records while major structural decisions are made. Developer proposals have been accelerated while planning steps were removed. That order of operations is backwards. Planning was removed before land disposition, public engagement was reduced before brokerage incentives were created, transparency narrowed while public assets were positioned for transfer. That is a legally vulnerable posture. I recognize there's new leadership and institutional advice being relied upon, but I would urge you, Kelly, to independently evaluate whether the breadth of litigation exemptions, the overlapping consultant structures, the cut corners, and the pace of Country Club Road process are fully consistent with both the letter and the spirit of Vermont law and federal regulations. Transparency is not decorative. Procurement policy is not optional. Public engagement is not an inconvenience. The court has said, I cannot enforce your procurement policy. I cannot restore integrity to this council or to the CCR process. You have to. Before you take irreversible steps with public land, you have to acknowledge what this process has become. Because once land is transferred, once contingent brokerage rights are embedded, once reliance is created, resetting becomes exponentially harder. We still have an opportunity to put this process in the right order. Restore planning before disposition, resolve conflicts before layering incentives, err on the side of transparency before invoking exemptions, but that will require acknowledging where we are, not defending how we got here. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Is there anybody else in the room who'd like to be heard? Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Aaron Wagoner. I live on Berlin Street, and I'm part of the apartheid-free community campaign in Montpelier. I'm urging Montpelier to vote for Article 12 because I believe that everyone should be able to live in equality and dignity and freedom, and that includes Palestinians. Growing up in a Jewish family with a grandmother who survived the Holocaust, one thing was very clear to me. No one should have to go through what she or her family went through ever again. No one should be forced out of their home, forced to leave the place where they grew up, or killed just because of who they are. For the last 2 years now, we've watched a genocide unfold, live streamed for the world to see, funded by our tax money. I was told that this was all needed to keep me safe, but there's no amount of bombs, and drones, and missiles, and AI targeting that can create peace and safety. To create lasting peace and safety, everyone must be able to live in freedom and dignity. In order to stop oppression, we must acknowledge that it is happening, understand how we are responsible for it, and work to end it. Article 12 takes a step in this direction by acknowledging that Israel is practicing apartheid, a fact that is already recognized by Israeli, Palestinian, and international human rights organizations. By sparking a conversation about Palestine at the municipal level, Article 12 also helps us recognize how we are responsible for apartheid against Palestinians. From the millions of federal dollars that Vermont sends to the Israeli military, to our fleet of F-35 fighter jets that are currently deployed in the Middle East. Finally, Article 12 is a commitment as a city to help end apartheid and work towards creating a world where Palestinians and all people can be free. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else in the room would like to be heard? If not, I'll move to online. Shauna Trader.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Shauna Trader. I do live in Barrie, and I'm the new Montpelier Farmers Market Manager, aka the Capital City Farmers Market. So I wanted to introduce myself. Thank you so much to the public, to the mayor, to the new manager, and the councilors. I hope that we all get to know each other over the next few years. I'm honored to serve an institution that has been a vibrant part of Montpelier's economic and community life since its founding in 1977. For nearly 5 decades, the market has been a place where farmers and producers sell directly to the public, keeping dollars in central Vermont and strengthening local agricultural viability. Economists and food system researchers have found that farmers markets are more than weekly markets. They are economic multipliers. National studies show that markets can contribute billions of dollars annually to local economies, and that a higher share of every dollar spent at a farmer's market stays in the community compared to conventional retail. On average, over 90% of money spent with vendors goes directly to farmers and producers, and about 60 cents of every dollar spent circulates locally through nearby businesses and services. Locally, the capital city's farmers market helped facilitate more than $1 million in regional farm and producer sales last year, and they have for the last couple of years, underscoring this local economic impact. But our role extends beyond economics and into community building. The market brings people downtown every Saturday in the summer and every first and third Saturday just up the hill at Alumni Hall during the winter, where we're holding our markets right now. We're talking about neighbors, families, and visitors from near and far. The market is also an entrepreneurial launch pad. Vendors often grow their businesses from selling at the market into year-round operations, food trucks, retail partners, and food manufacturing. And of course, it also increases foot traffic for nearby businesses. This year, the market has renewed its mission to reflect an intentional vision to connect our community with Vermont farmers, artisans, and food producers, promoting small businesses, local food, sustainability, education, and well-being. This mission reflects our pursuit of 501c3 nonprofit status. Achieving nonprofit status will help us to expand food access programs because all Vermonters deserve the delicious and nutritious food grown by Vermont farmers. Educational programming, because we're better neighbors when we learn together. And year-round community engagement, because who doesn't like a little party for a good cause? By diversifying our revenue streams with grants, sponsorships, tax-deductible contributions, and the public's help, we can deepen the market's impact while continuing to serve Montpelier's economy and residents. We are already planning an exciting slate of community building activities. For instance, everyone is invited to join us on Saturday, March 7th at 10 a.m. for our Sugar on Snow party. We're celebrating the start of Vermont's sugaring season with local maple producer, Silloway Maple, and each other. We're friends and market first-timers. Everyone is welcome. This event, like others we have in the pipeline, keeps energy alive in our community, brings folks together, and highlights the agricultural rhythms that are a part of Vermont's identity. This is a free event, sponsored, as mentioned, by Silloway Maple and Hillside Farm. Thank you both to them. This event is held at Alumni Hall, 45 College Street, with the rest of our market. And to make all this possible, we do need support. We're looking for sponsors, volunteers, and community partners who want to invest in Montpelier's local food economy and social fabric. Sponsorship helps underwrite programming. Volunteers help ensure our events run safely and joyfully. Community partners help us extend our reach into neighborhoods that might not traditionally participate. If anyone listening is interested in joining us, please check out the website or email me at montpelierfarmersmarket@gmail.com. We welcome support of all kinds, and we'd be glad to talk about partnership opportunities, volunteer roles, and ways the market can advance broader city goals in economic development, food access, and community well-being. In closing, the Capital City Farmers Market is more than a marketplace. It is an economic infrastructure, social infrastructure, and a shared cultural space that aligns with Montpelier's character and values. With your continued support and with the engagement of sponsors and volunteers, we can make 2026 a year of growth for our farmers, our small businesses, and our community. And I thank you all so much for your time.
Great, thank you. Jim.
I'd like to address an issue with the homeless committee that I sit on. I had asked for an agenda item to be put on this agenda, and somehow it got put on the 25th for March. And the problem is we only have 4 people coming to the meetings, so we can never have a quorum. We can't do minutes. We can't do any voting. We're supposed to put minutes forward, by law. We're putting minutes forward, but they aren't approved. What I wanted to discuss tonight, and because it's a problem, I wanted to discuss reducing the committee from 9 members to 7 and 2 alternates, so we can have a quorum and we can start approving stuff and voting on stuff. And I wanted it to be sooner rather than later because we're going to be in the warmer weather sooner than we think. And we want to get going on some stuff that Matt has been presented to us. So if I could be moved up at least to the next meeting in early March, that would be nice. I mean, like I said, I just somebody put me on the wrong month, same day, 25th, but put me on the wrong month. So if we can, if we can move me up one, then I'll address this next time so that we can start doing our, the work that you want us to do. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. I think we should be able to do that. I'm not going to be running the meeting then, but typically the meeting on the first meeting, one of the things we'll be talking about is committees and committee assignments. So I think that's an appropriate thing to add to that agenda.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Okay, thank you. We can move to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Moving to Community Development Block Grant. Mike, is that you? And this is a public hearing, right? Correct. So I'll open the public hearing now.
Mike Miller, the planning director. So tonight we have our public hearing for the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery. So we had this in the fall, late summer when we submitted applications. At that time, this is the second round. So I'm just going to read through what the hearing is supposed to be looking at. The city of Montpelier is considering making an application to the state of Vermont for a Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery Implementation Grant under the Vermont Community Development Program. A public hearing is being held to obtain the views of citizens on community development, to furnish information concerning the amount of funds available and the range of community development activities that may be undertaken under this program, the impact to any historic and archaeological resources that may be affected by the proposed project, and to give affected citizens the opportunity to examine the proposed statement of projected uses of these funds. The proposal is to apply for $5.225 million for a project that will involve two distinct aspects: an infrastructure element and an LMI, which is a low to moderate income and workforce housing. So the low and moderate income and workforce housing cannot happen without the improvements of utilities and infrastructure. I'll just briefly mention, most of you are already familiar with these, what the project is, but the infrastructure improvements will include new sewer and water lines to be placed down East Montpelier Road. That's what everyone refers to as US Route 2. And that will go up to the intersection with Country Club Road and extend up to the existing building, the clubhouse. There are two rail crossings that will need to be crossed. And there's the main line, Washington County line, and then a spur line, Country Club Road. In order to improve the intersection, the East Montpelier Road will be elevated after the Washington County line crossing to allow for a level and safe intersection with Country Club Road. And this addresses the drop that currently exists from the rail spur. The intersection will be prepped for future signalization if a traffic study deems that necessary. Country Club Road will have sections regraded from the current 14% to a more reasonable 12%. A new sidewalk will be installed on the western side, connecting to the existing shared use path, and an uphill bike lane will be created on the east side, making a complete street network. These will allow for urgently needed housing to be developed within the project area. And the housing site is our parcel that the city owns, the Country Club Road site, and it will provide LMI units with a complete street network with additional future housing opportunities possible. These improvements will cost $5.2 million. And the construction will include mixed income housing with an array of units available, including at least 24 LMI housing units. The housing project itself is not part of this funding request. Rather, the LMI units will be required of the private developer. So we're not giving any money for the housing to be built. We're getting money to build the infrastructure And as a part of the money for the infrastructure, our private developer will have to construct the 24 units, the approximately 24 units. It's in the application right now, 24. And I'm available to answer any questions, but it's public hearing first. So
And just a couple of questions. The total amount of the grant we're applying for is how much?
$5.225 million.
And no city match for that.
There is no city match for that, correct?
Okay, thanks. Are there any public comments? Steve?
Steve Whitaker, Montpelier. I have submitted written comments in more thorough form to the city clerk. Those are required to be uploaded to the Agency of Commerce for the record. I want to address both process and risk. HUD regulations governing CDBG public hearings require that sufficient information about the proposed grant application be made available to the public in advance of the hearing so that meaningful comment can occur. That includes a description of the proposed activities, the amount of funds requested, the location of the project, and the benefit to low and moderate income persons. In this case, the complete application was not made publicly available in advance of this hearing. The public has not had access to the full environmental certifications, the engineering scope, the budget breakdowns, the affordability framework embedded in the submission. That limits meaningful public participation. John, our city clerk, stayed late on Friday to provide access to a copy, but that copy was lacking the map of the served area, lacking all the environmental certifications. It was not a complete application, and therefore this hearing does not meet the requirements of the CDBG DR public hearing process. Second, the application continues to present this project as limited infrastructure, water, sewer, and roadway improvements, while the record reflects that this infrastructure is intended to enable 300 or more units of housing development on a brownfield site that's not been fully delineated or remediated. Presenting this as a standalone pipe project without fully disclosing the scale of the intended build out and enables risks segmenting the true scope of the undertaking. Third, and this is critical, through public records request, I've obtained internal Agency of Commerce and communications reflecting a narrowing of the low and moderate income housing obligations for Country Club Road to approximately 24 units. That affordability framework has not been publicly vetted by this council, by the Housing Committee, or the Planning Commission, yet this CDBG grant application appears to have incorporated these as affordability assumptions. If federal funds are being sought on the premise of LMI benefit, the affordability framework must be transparent and openly adopted. It should not be embedded through internal correspondence by administrative fiat or staff whim without public review. That affects the credibility of the public benefits representation in this application. Finally, the brownfield delineation is incomplete. There's no finalized corrective action plan. There's not even a work plan to do the next phase of development. And I'll include one more issue here that this council will have to deal with immediately. What level of clean are we going to aspire to? Because that will impact this is a public hearing, is not a 3-minute on an issue like this. It shouldn't be your 3-minute clock.
You can finish your sentence.
The standard of clean that we're going to go for on a brownfield will determine whether any of these developers or the city can achieve TIF funding. Because if we have if we don't go for a clean, these are prime ag soils, there's going to be restrictions on not letting your kid play in the dirt, not allowed to dig trees or shrubs without permission or an engineer on site. That's going to be a permanent stigma on the resale value and the ability to get tax increment financing. So that decision is going to have to be made before the Stone Environmental Work Plan is written, because they'll have to do a different level of sampling if we're going to shoot for clean.
Thanks, Steve. And we do have your written remarks. Is there anyone else who'd like to be heard? Dave Bellini.
Hello, everybody.
Hello,
My name is
Dave.
Dave Bellini. A couple of things. One, hi, Kelly. Nice to meet you. and good luck to you. I think you're really going to like living in Montpelier. I just had a quick question. What is low income? What is moderate income? How do you measure them? And when do you measure them, since this project's probably years out? And are these going to be for rent or are these going to be for sale? And thank you very much.
Thanks, Dave. Mike?
All right, so that's a very good question. These are determined by federal formulas, basically. And what the government starts with, if I understand everything correctly, is you can start with about the median income, and then you've got various low, the LMI is generally 30% number. So usually we're talking about what's the average income. And then if somebody's earning less than that, so median would be 50%. If you're earning 30% or less, you are in the LMI category. These are almost always rental because usually people in that category don't have the resources to be able to afford to purchase. So it's usually, these are classifications. These are usually subsidized units that are managed by organizations such as Downstream. We also talk about, you'll also hear sometimes referred to as AMI, that's your moderate income, or you might have a 60% or an 80% or 120% of AMI. And that's really just looking at brackets slightly above and slightly below 50%. So 100% of median income AMI would be your 50%, your average, your median income. And then 80% would be slightly less and 120% would be slightly more. So sometimes you'll see programs by the federal government or by the state that says, 50% of the beneficiaries have to be 120% of AMI, and it'll be tracked based on that figure. And I don't off the top of my head know what that number is.
And Dave, Mike, do you have the, where the number of 24 units come from? Is that set by federal regulations also?
It's, it was set working with the people at the VCDP, Vermont Community Development Program. So they have staff that administers the federal program. In the fall, our initial discussions with them resulted in number of 18. You remember us talking about 18 LMI units. When we went back for the pre-application meeting in January to talk about the new application, they had two requests. One was that we had asked for $8 million. They said, we want to see it at 5. And second, they said the 18 million would be up, or the 18 units would go up to 24 units. So we kind of had a shift in what was going to be the ground rules that we're going to be working within. Again, it's still there's still potential for that to shift and move, but that's where we came to with negotiations. Mm-hmm. I know Ben was at that meeting as well. So
I was going to say too, right? Like that's based on the state needs to manage the entire portfolio of CBGDR funds, right? I believe it's achieved 70%.
Yes.
LMI across the portfolio of projects that are funded. So some can be more, some could be less, but it's overall they're trying to balance, I believe, a 70% portfolio.
Yes. So they factored in if we were to build out almost 300 units. Because they already have a lot of LMI, we're not required to do 70%. Otherwise, we'd have 210 LMI housing units, which would work. There's just not, we wouldn't have any funding to make that work. So what we negotiated was this lower number of 24, but we'll be able to work with that because when we get to the Country Club Road applications, they're being phased. So we're not building 300 at once for the most part. So we'll have to look at what the applications are when we get there and go back to VCDP and say, does this still work with your overall formula to make sure that you meet your 70% goal? And we have a number that works for us as well.
So what we're doing depends in part on what's happening in other communities across the state.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
okay.
They've already done their first round of applications, so they do know what's out there. And they make an assumption of these were all going to be actually built out and work. Mm-hmm. So something doesn't work, then there may be some adjustments.
Yep.
When we get to do our grant agreement.
Thanks, Mike. Are there any other members of the public either?
I could provide a little more clarity. Please.
Sure.
Area median incomes will also shift based on household size. So looking quickly for Montpelier, for a household of one, it's about $80,000 a year. And so to meet the 50%, you would have a household of one at 40% per year. Larger households will have larger incomes that they then fall under that 50%. And in the application, we've submitted, it looks like 8 for 30%, 8 for 50%, and 8 for 80% to get to that 24. And so the very, very low income units is not the full 24. It's a subset of that, which will also help with affordability for the project.
Thanks, Kelly. Are there any other members of the public who would like to be heard before we close the public hearing? Not seeing any hands raised online. I'll give you just a moment because I know people sometimes still have challenges interacting with the technology.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, this is Harold McGrath from Montpelier.
Great, you're up.
Well, I just, I'll tell you my story. I've lived here for 50 years. Just the last couple years have had a little bit of time on my hands to watch some of these meetings live. And I feel, we have one person that controls these meetings that comes in. Normally a person is allowed to speak. And he has one or two items to deal with. So what I found out is this gentleman comes in, he intimidates every individual in those meetings. I'm seeing the mayor going, I've seen the city manager, which wasn't a big deal, but I just see people that are trying to serve the public be intimidated by what I feel is a public nuisance.
Harold,
Yes.
Can I interrupt you for just a moment? Right at this moment, what we're talking about is the community development block grant application. And I wonder if you have some observations or comments on that.
No, I don't, sir.
Okay, we do have a point again at the end of the meeting for public comment if you'd like to do that, or I certainly take your point.
Yeah, so this is what I'll say is I had trouble signing in earlier, and I reached out to a city council member and they helped me get the link. And I just wanted to, like I said, I know this is all overdue. I know the timing isn't right. And if I have to wait and come back and speak, I have no problem doing that, Mayor.
Since you were trying to log on during the public comment period and you couldn't get in, I'm going to let you continue.
Yeah, well, like I said, I mean, there isn't much that has to be said here. I just feel that what you have going on here is intimidation. I've seen just in the last two meetings alone, Chris Lumbra and Adrian, I think it's the lady on the left over there, get interrogated by this guy during break. I just feel if he brought anything public, anything positive to a public meeting, this is what it's for. That's what the public input is for. When you bring toxic stuff and negative stuff to no positive stuff to a meeting, you're spending hundreds of hours for this individual to get public information, wasting our taxpayers' time. This individual isn't even a taxpayer. And I feel like the city council, and I don't point fingers, you're letting this man control this issue. And I'm tired of watching it on TV. He's kicked out of 16 individual places in Montpelier because he's a public nuisance. And the city council needs to do the same. And Kelly's just joining here. And I definitely don't want this guy to, in no way, shape, or form, to intimidate or, you know, it reflect any way that she's able to do her job. That's not what Montpelier is about. This guy
Thanks.
isn't Montpelier. Sorry, I'm going to stop now.
Thanks. I think I heard the fanfare that was your time's up signal. I think that I think your points are well taken, but I would also say that based on case law that I'm familiar with, I don't believe that we have the authority to ban a member, whether they live in the city or not, from coming to our meetings. But I certainly hear where you're coming from. Are there any other members of the audience who'd like to be heard on the public hearing? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and throw it to council. Council members, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I just have one question, Mike. The number of units changed. Has the deadline changed for the money to be spent on the housing? Wasn't there a
2030.
2030? It's still 2030.
Still the end of 2030.
The end of
December
2030.
2030.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from council members? Is there a motion to approve the grant application?
I move that we approve the application.
Is there a second? Any discussion?
Say good luck and thanks to the team for putting together a comprehensive application in a tight time frame.
Mike, were you going to say something else before we vote?
Yeah, I just wanted to go and comment on the grant availability, just to go through and say the grant, we got very specific written suggestions because usually CDBG has a long application window. It's a tightened window. So we asked the staff how they wanted us to do it. And they said, or in the public hearing, print out the application and make it available 3 days in advance, which was why we tried to get it in on Friday, and we got it on the web. So that was what was required by VCDP per their guidance. So.
Okay, thanks. Folks, there's been a motion seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Right.
Any opposed? All right. Thanks, Mike. Next up, bond informational here. Who's got that? All right.
Sharing permission, thanks. All right, I threw together just a little quick slideshow to keep myself organized here on my first meeting, make sure that we go through this, but you, as a component of town meeting and the bond that you all have forwarded to the ballot, we have to hold a statutory required informational hearing for the public within, I believe, 10 days. If I look to the city clerk for the correct time. And well, real quick. Let me see that. So we have as part of the warning for town meeting day on March 3rd, next Tuesday, article number 6. And if you want the full language of the article, it is in a lovely annual report here that we have extra copies on the table. I have to say, this is an incredible resource. I think many communities would love to have this at their hands to understand what departments are doing, as well as a list of everything they're voting on. And so the Article 6 is for an $8 million general obligation bond for sewer pump station and water and sewer line upgrades. These are proposed uses for the bond, which you all have reviewed in the course of your budget hearings. Pump station number 1, siphon lining, Berlin Hill sewer line, the Clarendon to Bailey Ave sewer line, the Bar Street water line, Lower State Street water line, North Street water line. These were not specified in the language of the article, but this is generally what you all are explaining to the public that you hope to use these monies for, should the voters approve it. I will stop there. I don't know. I'll look to the city clerk if you want to give any general election information to the public at this time.
All right, I'll open the public hearing. Are there any comments or questions from the public? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. And we can just move on. We don't have to take action.
Okay, similarly,
Item 8.
you are required to hold a public informational hearing on the content that is presented for town meeting day on March 3rd. Article 1 is the elections of mayor, council, district 1, 2, and 3, and 3 commissioners to the Green Mountain Cemetery. Article 2 is the City of Montpelier municipal budget of $13,287,636 and the payment of taxes accordingly. Article 3 is mayor's compensation of $4,080. Article 4 is councilors' compensation of $2,040 for each of 6 councilors. Article 5 is a designated downtown special assessment of $62,000. Article 6 is the bond we just discussed. Article 7 is an appropriation for the Montpelier Community Fund of $138,175. Article 8 is for the Kellogg Covered Library appropriation of $480,504. Article 9 is an appropriation for Mosaic Vermont at $3,750. Article 10 is for the Central Vermont Home Health and Hospice expenditures of $23,500. Article 11 is a modification of authorizations to enter into tax stabilization contracts. And this is allows you to give a greater discount than you're currently authorized to give right now, which is 50% of additional tax on new value. It goes up to 100% in the proposal, and you all have a tax stabilization contract later on in today's agenda. And then number 12 is the apartheid pledge, which we heard some prior public comment regarding. This is a quick summary. I understand there was a little bit of confusion in the last public hearing, so I just wanted to kind of present a summary of the budget and how the municipal budget and the city budget combine for the taxpayers' total increase. And so we have at the top is your total budget, including all taxes and fees, proposed for this year at $20,786,000. The current year budget with property taxes only is proposed at just shy of $14 million. That is shows your percent increase of your tax rate here at 7.9. So we're talking about just the city municipal budget. This is the school district budget. Similarly, they have many fewer fees that they collect. Most of their revenue is from property tax, and is also Montpelier and the broader Montpelier Roxbury area for an increase of 4.05%. Now, these are showing just portions of the pie. You can see that the school district has a much larger portion of the total pie when you compare the two budgets here. Now I show on the right here, the pie is a little bigger because we're growing both budgets by a little bit in the future fiscal year 26-27. These are how the tax rates compare. So in our current fiscal year, you'll see that the city has just shy of about 44% of the property tax burden, and the school district has over 56%. We're shifting that a little bit in both proposed budgets, where the city's proportion grows a little bit and the school district shrinks down to about 55. And so this, what I'm showing is just where some confusion was about how these combine for the total overall tax increase. If you look at both the city and the school for voters that live in, taxpayers that live in Montpelier at 5.45%. The internal pie is last year's pie. The other pie is this year's pie. The pie is getting a little bit bigger and the proportions are shifting slightly. And so since we have a smaller portion of the pie in the city with a bigger tax increase, our share of the pie is getting a little bit bigger, but that's why we end up with a 5.5% increase for the public for both. And our city increase is just shy of it, as you all approved and forwarded to the voters on town meeting day next week. I will stop there and invite you to open the public hearing.
That was a very cool graphic, that last one, with the two things superimposed on each other. I'll open the public hearing. Are there any members of the public who'd like to be heard on the budget presentation or ballot presentation, budget or other items? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing. Ben, were you starting to say something?
Well, I was just wondering if maybe we could get a little bit more, I know there's been some questions around the tax stabilization policy, and I think it's just important that we get real clear on that and like what happened last year and those kind of things. If we could just maybe get a little bit more on what exactly people are being asked. We already have a tax stabilization policy, so what are we actually putting up?
Mike Miller, planning director again. What we are voting on next Tuesday is authorization for city council to be able to amend our policy. So that will the next vote will not amend policy. It will simply give more power to the city council to adjust the policy. That's the first thing to understand. The way the statute is written, it's something to the effect of the city council, where authorized by the taxpayers, the city councils can enter into these agreements. And when we adopted ours in 1980, and when we amended it in 2001, we took the literal language of the statute and we put it into the bond. We voted that. So when state law changed to give more powers, we weren't and haven't been able to take advantage of it. So a lot of communities around us already can do 100% tax stabilizations because they're the way they had adopted it. They said, we're going to adopt what's allowed under that section of statute. So as statute changed, their powers changed. We didn't have it that way. And the way this is worded, we're going to continue our trend of not specifically, if state law changed at the end of this legislative cycle, we'd have to vote again. But this will at least get us up to date with what the current statute is. And so I believe the areas that changed are, first of all, we're adding in the ability, the city of Montpelier has a business property tax. And currently our tax stabilization does not allow us to stabilize that, but we can. So that is one of the changes that's in there. The second one is energy generating facilities. So if you're putting, it's not anybody because small residential aren't allowed to do tax stabilization. But if you were a business and wanted to put solar panels on your roof, this would now let you be able to tax stabilize that as well. And the big change, of course, is we are currently limited to 50% tax stabilization. This will give us the ability to write a policy that says we're going to allow up to 100%. Now you can have a policy that says only certain types or certain, you have to do something that gives us the ability to give you, if you want 100%, just like we can do 10 years, but we don't automatically do 10 years. If you read our policy, we give you 5 years. If you want 6, you have to create a number of jobs, or you have to increase the grand list by a certain amount. And the more of these boxes you check, the more we'll give you an extra year. We'll give you an extra year. You will certainly be able to write a tax policy that could do the same thing with this 50 to 100%. It might not be an automatic 100%. It'll be your decision if we get the authorization, we'll come back and amend the policy, and you can decide what incentives we want to build into that.
And one of the important things, there's discussion of this front porch forum. But one of the important things is that someone who gets a tax stabilization agreement never winds up paying less tax than they already are. The tax stabilization agreement applies only to the increase in value, not to the current value of the property. And in fact, I think we have a condition here that if they don't qualify if the burdens they're putting on the public are more than the tax.
But just in terms of like the ballot item, the short story is that we're just voting to align our current tax stabilization policy with state statute.
Correct.
Yeah, and just a little more further clarification on that, that we have a tax stabilization policy already. This is not to decide yes or no if it's a good idea. It's also not to decide if we're going to make these changes. It just allows us to, and that in the future, when we discuss making these changes, there will be plenty of opportunity for the public to have input into that decision. So no changes are being made at this point.
And if anyone wants to see the current policy, if you go to our packet that online, if you go to our council packet for tonight, as a part of the tax stabilization agenda item that's coming up either next or very soon, it has a copy of our existing policy in that packet. So if you're interested in finding out what it is, you can look it up.
Thanks, Mike. Okay. I think we already closed the public hearing, didn't we?
No.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
So you just asked if anybody wants to speak. You didn't close it.
I believe we did. John, do you have it?
I wrote it down as closed, but there was, to be clear, right at when the closing, then did say I would like to do it. But I had down the list.
Okay. The public hearing is closed. Next up, update on Home Farm Way.
I will be here just to kick this off for SLR and folks who are. Thanks. Give me a little bit of company up here. So 5 Home Farm Way is a project that's been going on for a couple of years. It's been a topic of discussion for a long time. If you're trying to orient what we're talking about, if you're over on East Montpelier Road, Route 2, and you're near Agway, you used to be able to look off to your right and see an old building that was abandoned and boarded up. It has now been removed. And that property, which is actually quite big, it's 15 acres, has been transferred to the city. We are now the owners of that property. And SLR has been working on some grants as part of their project and their contract. They're going to give you an update and report out on the progress on that project and what to expect coming up next.
Okay.
Alrighty. Just real quick, I think it's important for me to acknowledge that the grant that they're reporting out on was applied for by the Preservation Trust of Vermont. We worked in partnership with the city and the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board and the Vermont Community Loan Fund and joint owners and former owners of the property to resolve the issues related to this and to apply to Vermont Emergency Management to receive a grant to deconstruct the home, resolve legal issues, and fund the engineering study for the floodplain restoration. But just want to acknowledge that there's, I've been involved in that in my professional capacity.
Thanks, man. All right.
Thanks, Mike and Ben. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, great. My name is Roy Schiff. I'm a water resource engineer at SLR Consulting. I actually live in Montpelier and I plan to be there tonight, but I'm a little under the weather, so keep the germs home. I wanted to start for a quick minute to give you a project update of where we've kind of come over the past year and a half or so. And then my coworker, Ethan Ely, who's on the call, will maybe walk through some of the project highlights with some graphics and photos and a snippet of the plans. All of this builds on the summary in your packets that describe most of this as well. So yeah, so I just wanted to, we're wrapping up the final design for the project. Permitting is underway. We actually received a Vermont Stream Alteration permit yesterday. We're waiting on an Army Corps permit, construction general permit. We have a little bit of work to do on the Vermont Wetlands permit. And I wanted to remind folks that this project was coupled with the removal of the Pioneer Street Dam in a hazard mitigation grant application that the city submitted to FEMA and is one of the hazard mitigation grants projects that's moving forward through FEMA. So Ethan and myself have been responding to requests for information about both Home Farm Way as well as the Pioneer Street dam removal. And we're here tonight. One of the final tasks of our work with Preservation Trust Vermont and the project team is to report to the City Council and the public of the progress of the project. So I think that's a good summary. And with that, I turn it over to Ethan to give you a short summary of the details of the project.
Thanks, Roy. I'm just going to share my screen, so just give me 1 second to share this. All right, I am sharing a slide. Does everyone see this now?
Yes.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. So my name is Ethan Ely, also a water resource engineer with SLR. I'm just going to give you a quick kind of run through of the project, describe the project site and what the plan is for construction. And then, yeah, if you have any questions, please speak up and let me know. So this first picture that you're seeing here, this is an aerial photo of the 5 Home Farm Way site. It's a floodplain, partly forested along the Winooski River. In this photo, you can see the Winooski River is running from the right side of the page to the left, heading towards the Route 2 bridge. You have, if you see my little red pointer here, you have the railroad running along the, what would that be? That would be the western side of the project, or no, eastern side of the project site. And then you have the Winooski River wrapping around the project site. And then right on the corner here, you have the Stevens branch coming in. So this is at the confluence of the Stevens branch and the Winooski River. And another thing I just want to point out is there's this, the Connor Brothers property. So that's another kind of bounding property along the way property. And in total, the property is about 18.4 acres. Our project is looking at doing restoration on about 13 acres of that property to help reconnect it with the Winooski River. And during the July 2023 flood, this property was flooded. And the goal of the project is pretty much to increase the amount of flood storage this floodplain already provides. This is just another photo, aerial photo from above showing the project site. Again, you have the Stevens branch coming in, you have the Winooski River flowing from right to left, the Connor Brothers property. This dotted dashed line here running around, this is the area where you'd be doing the floodplain restoration. And it's offset from the railroad here, so we're not in that railroad right of way. This building right here, this is the former Jacob Davis homestead, which was removed. So this is no longer here. And these buildings here are also no longer there. They were removed from the floodplain. These were some farm buildings and sheds. This is our proposed design layout. It kind of shows all the different aspects of our project that we're proposing. This is pretty much the same view that the previous aerial photo is showing, and it calls out again all of the different aspects of the project. In total, we're looking at excavating about 24,000 cubic yards of material to lower that floodplain about an average of 1.2 feet. So within this 13 acres, 24,000 cubic yards of material would be removed. And the floodplain would be graded so that it's sloping towards the river in kind of a natural sort of slope there. Another aspect of the project, we have some stone fill being installed at the corner here. So as the floodplain width reduces pretty rapidly in this area, right along the Connor Brothers property, you have the flood flows being squeezed into this more confined section of the river corridor. So we have some stone proposed to help prevent any sort of erosion that could occur along the corner of the floodplain there. And then some erosion control fabric again along this berm extending upstream a little ways. Other aspects of the project, you have this bank here. So this is about 560 feet long, and you have these large wood deflectors that we're proposing, and they're spaced out and designed so that they help slow the water down as it's coming down through the river and help prevent that bank from eroding. So right now it's eroding pretty rapidly. Since 2023, we estimated about 40 to 50 feet of erosion. So this will help slow that down and hopefully stabilize the bank in kind of a natural approach, and also provide some really nice habitat for aquatic critters on the river. A couple other things I want to call out. We have a big part of this project is restoring the vegetation. So once we excavate down and dig up the material and lower the floodplain, we want to make sure that we revegetate it so that it has a really nice vegetative cover, and it will prevent erosion and provide good habitat. In a lot of areas, we're going to try to preserve the trees that are already there. So you can see this big patch of cottonwoods right here. We're trying to preserve that. There's some really well-established black willow along here, and another patch of nice trees right here. So we're trying to preserve the well-established trees where we're not actually digging that much. And then in other areas where we're digging down deeper, we're going to try to reuse those trees for these log structures. And in areas where there's some smaller trees, we're going to be transplanting those. So any saplings that we find, some nice willows, there's a bunch of nice sycamore trees actually on this site, trying to transplant those and make sure that they stay on site. And then after excavation, we'll also be bringing in a bunch more new plantings. So we're going to be planting in this 100-foot buffer along the river. We're going to be planting about 1,200 live stakes, and then throughout the site, another 600 or so tree and shrub plantings. So there'll be a lot of extra plantings installed afterwards. And there's also some invasive species treatments that will be part of the project as well. And then I'm just going to go in one last thing here, talk about some of the cross sections. So this plan view provides a good view of kind of all the aspects of the project, but then to kind of see what the excavation actually looks like, it's helpful to kind of look at it from a side view, so a slice through that floodplain. So these two red lines here, I'm going to show some cross sections kind of slicing through the floodplain and showing how much we're digging down and what that kind of looks like. So these are those two red lines. We're looking in this cross-section view, you have the river right here. So this is the Winooski River, and you're facing downstream. So when looking downstream, you have the river left on this side and the river right over here. This is our big floodplain area. This is that big patch of cottonwood trees that we want to try to preserve, well-established trees. And then this is, elevation on your left side, your y-axis, and then stationing on your x-axis. So you can see here, this is two different sample cross sections cut through the floodplain. Throughout the floodplain, we're not excavating everywhere the same. So in this section here, we're only taking a little bit of material near the bank because the floodplain is already pretty low. And then at this section, it's a pretty extensive excavation. We're cutting down up to about 5 feet in some places, up to maybe 6 feet in others. And lowering that floodplain and helping reconnect it with the river and allowing more water to be stored up on the floodplain. So the elevation and the depth of excavation that we're digging in across the floodplain varies a lot, between 0 and 6 feet, but it should help reconnect and kind of create a smooth floodplain where you can store a lot more water. One thing I also want to call out on this slide is we highlight some of the reductions in water surface elevation. So on this slide, we're showing the 50-year flood, and excuse me there. It shows that if you just restore this floodplain, we're looking at about 0.1 feet of reduction in the water level throughout the project site. So over a length of the river of about 4,500 feet or so. So a little less than a mile. If you combine this project as we're proposing with the Pioneer Street Dam removal, that reduction in flood level actually goes up to about 0.7 feet at the project site. And then in other areas, closer to Pioneer Street Dam, that goes up to almost 2 feet. And that extends over about 8,000 feet of the river. So you're really dropping the water level over a really long stretch of river by combining these two projects. So that is one reason why we're doing that, is these projects are pretty integrated in how the hydraulics of the river operate. They really link together well and provide the kind of maximum flood reduction benefits here. And I think that covers most of what I wanted to go over for the project, and open up for any questions.
Folks, anybody have any questions? This is a great presentation. It's very helpful for us to see what you're doing with both the aerial and cross-section views of the site. What's the timeline for this?
Maybe I'll jump in on that one. So as I mentioned, the project is working through the FEMA grant process, which is a pretty lengthy project. I would say if all goes well, we could be looking at construction of these two projects in 27. A few things have to come into alignment to kind of keep that all rolling. And then there's some administrative requirements, environmental reviews, cultural resource reviews that need to be finalized prior to the construction. Then the project will be put out to bid. So the project team, Mike and others, kind of suspect that's a 2026 task, and then summer 2027 these things could come out, but it's a bit uncertain until the funding is finalized and that's in hand.
Anybody else? Karen, Kelly, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I just wanted to acknowledge, and this was included in your memo, that the Parks Commission has made a request to include this parcel as the designated park. That's why Alec is hanging around here right now for this. So I thought I'd give him, maybe give him a chance to speak on that.
Yeah. I'm really just here to tease Alec Ellsworth, our Parks Director. I'm just here to tease a future agenda item, which is that Home Farm Way is one of 4 properties that the city now owns that have no ability to develop for anything other than open space. And I think it would make sense to designate them as parks. The Parks Commission is a 5-member elected body. I'm sure most of you probably know the Parks Commission, but it's been 127 years of productive work for the city that I think has resulted in the amazing parks that we have. So I think they're a real asset, and they would be able to look at, this is by far the largest of the 4 sites. It's 18 acres. The other ones are small buyout sites on Elm Street and Lower State. But they would be able to guide community discussion around how to make these into high quality park spaces. And they would be a great partner for that. We also have the good fortune to be in this program through the National Park Service called Recreational Trails and Conservation Assistance, RTCA, and they fast-tracked us into this program, which is a technical assistance program to design recreational spaces. And they are able to fast-track communities who have experienced disasters. So they'll be a really great partner as well, and all the timeline lines up really well for this project to actually get done in 27. So that'll be probably next meeting or a couple of meetings, but I thought it was important just to tell you that's coming, and we'll provide you sort of the parcel maps and more in detail information about what would actually become a park. But what we'd be requesting from City Council is that you formally designate these 4 areas as parks and delegate the Parks Commission to.
I think this is great, Alec. I think that anyone who's been paying attention to our city parks over the last few years knows that we've had tremendous success at acquiring land that expands our park system, which is really great for everyone who lives here, and also for our economic development goal of using outdoor recreation as an economic development tool. What I keep wondering about, and I'm sure you've thought this through, is as we grow more and more of our parks, do we have in your department the capacity to manage them?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. It probably requires a longer answer. But I would say the short answer is that, we have 500 acres of parks, 10 parks. We have also 5,000 street trees, and all that land and resource is like delegated to 4 people, 4 staff members. So it's, I'm trying to find the right adjective. It's a lot of responsibility for people that requires triaging and making priorities. So it's not a yes or no answer. It's like how do we design this it's owned by the city. It's a natural resource. We have a responsibility to manage it. How do we move forward so that we can responsibly manage it with the staff that we have? And I think the Parks Commission will help guide that process. Yeah.
Kelly.
If I could just jump, I see a lot of heads nodding, so I just want to confirm consensus for bringing this forward. And I think we can work with Alec to give kind of a comprehensive answer to your question at that time.
Just quickly too, it's I think important to acknowledge that there's a conservation easement on this property from the Vermont Housing Conservation Board that requires public access. And so the fact that it be managed public access through the Parks Department, I think makes a lot of sense.
So this may be getting beyond the scope of what we're talking about tonight, but with the transfer of this property to the city, does this then take care of the other debt that was on the property and enable the food works to finally be extinguished as an entity?
That's been accomplished. So the whole point of the grant was to deconstruct the house, resolve the legal issues associated with the ownership structure of food works that no longer exists, and pay off the mortgage to the Montpelier loan fund. That's all been accomplished. The whole deal was the city would receive it free and clear with the exception of conservation.
Yeah, if I could add to, I just think that just gratitude to Ben and to the Connor brothers and planning department. I've been in some of the discussions around this property over the years, not as long as some other folks, but long enough to know that it was extremely complicated and was a huge lift. So thank you to those involved who got it all done. I think it was a big lift.
I would actually just say, like, I really do need to acknowledge Nicole Bratton, who's been here to our meeting before, with the staff member that really literally made this happen, and David Mears, the attorney, who's very diligent in working through complicated legal issues, and also Fred Connor was a great community member and partner in resolving outstanding. So it's truly a team sport, and the city staff been great. I think it's the best outcome we could hope for given the situation.
I think that we were dealing with this. And at that time, we were talking about, is the building safe, boarding it up and all that, the first year that I was on the council. So this has been dragging on for some time. So congratulations on sticking with it. So
Very good. Yeah, and I mean, let's not forget that it helps the threat of flooding, reduces the threat of flooding, which is a good thing. I'm curious about the soil that's there. Is it any good? Or is it all silt and rock and stuff after being underwater?
Yeah, it's a mixture of soils. There's a lot of large sand deposits from the past wave of flooding. It's gone down the Winooski. But then there's some nice native soils underneath. So I think the plantings that Ethan mentioned in his presentation should thrive there, and it will be a nice space. To grow things, whatever the city decides to do there.
Council, anything else? All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
It's very exciting that this is coming along. All right. It's the Mike Show.
Yes.
Number 9, tax stabilization.
Tax stabilization. Okay, Mike Miller again. So what you have tonight is the first of 2 public hearings, so you don't have to make any decisions tonight, but we are here to have a public hearing again. So this tax stabilization request has come in from the New School of Montpelier. They're up at the old DTFA campus, so 41 College Street. And I'll just touch on some of the highlights. So what they're doing is they're proposing to renovate the former Bishop Hall at 41 College Street. And the proposed renovations will include about 4,000 square feet of renovated space, converting old dormitory space into classrooms. The owner estimates that the cost of construction for the redevelopment will be around $400,000. And the tax stabilization contract will limit municipal taxes on the newly assessed building to no more than 50% of the increase over the current municipal tax. And there's the memo that outlines all this in your packet. And on the second page, talked about the analysis of criteria, and it meets all 4 of the criteria. And in the additional years, this is what I mentioned before, our current policy says, meet it, you've got 5 years at 50%. But if you do something more, and these are 1 through 7, the things that are more, they qualify at number 4. They will be creating more than 20 full-time equivalent jobs. So that will give them a bonus year, 1 year. So the recommendation of staff is that the city council approve tax stabilization at the next meeting, not this one. A contract between the city of Montpelier and the new school of Montpelier at 50% of the new municipal taxes on the building for a period of 6 years. And I'll take any questions, or actually it's in public hearing.
Yep, I will open the public hearing. Are there any members of the public who'd like to be heard on this? Anyone in the room? Steve?
Steve Whitaker, Montpelier, the tax stabilization, when the dearth of folks participating in these hearings, I've said this before and I'll keep saying it, is indicative of the charade that we're running of engagement. And every tax stabilization that we grant, no matter how well-meaning it is, it's increasing the cost of the tax rate because we have to make up that money somewhere else. So until we can get and I would suggest we do a dashboard, a cumulative dashboard of how many tax stabilizations and we've granted or plan to grant, especially if it goes up to 100%. But this idea that until we build a budget that the public feels they can make their own, this is a year after year a problem where y'all just rubber stamp an increase and rubber stamp an increase, and no one has the guts to make any cuts. So this is just another tax increase is one way to look at it, and that we need to do something different. That I think that the dashboard would help make people aware, but until we start building a budget based on community values and priorities and figuring out what we're willing to let go of, you're just pricing people out of Montpelier. And every tax stabilization is another example of that.
Thanks, Steve. Of course, what you just said is not true. This does not touch any taxes that are being collected. Mike, you can probably respond even better than that.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a but-for statement in ours anymore. So sometimes you'll hear in these types of things, well, would they have built this anyways? And so sometimes you talk, well, we had a discussion when we amended the policy, I believe in 2020. It was just too difficult to make that determination. So we went with a more straightforward, if you meet these requirements, because we want to encourage economic development. And a lot of economic development, especially, you need to be investing a lot to qualify. So if you're spending 400, 500, 600, sometimes $1 million, you need to spend that money and then be able to get the business up and running to start collecting money. So that way you're in a better position to afford those taxes, because you know the taxes are going to be coming. The tax stabilization is just a way to help businesses to be able to take advantage. And most of these applications that we've seen are generally our small businesses, our neighbors. I haven't seen any tax stabilizations from Tractor Supply and larger multinational corporations coming through. These have just been smaller ones. And the benefit of the tax stabilization is it helps small businesses usually get started, especially if you're talking about bringing in a restaurant where you might have to invest $600,000 to get that up. It gives you a little bit of cushioning to your taxes for a period of time. But yes, we don't have a but for to go through and say, well, they would have done it anyways. So this is our way of saying we're open for business. And we want you to come and invest in our community.
And also, I mean, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but like you kind of like the argument here, the idea behind this is you're actually growing the tax base over the long run because you're incentivizing development that after a certain limited amount of time will in fact be taxable.
Yes.
And the other thing I just want to say too, specific to this application, is just that the new school at Montpelier, I feel like goes under the radar in our community, but I've actually met with these folks before, and number one, they're great stewards of their property, and number two, they're providing like critical service to Vermont, right? It's a therapeutic school for kids that it's not an appropriate learning setting elsewhere, and so they come to our community to receive the excellent services of the school, and I just think it's exactly the kind of neighbor that we should be supporting, and it's economic development.
Exactly what I was going to say. It's right across the street from my office. It's a vibrant environment. Kids are there, active. We should be supporting this. Obviously, we're not voting on whether to approve it tonight. Is the second public hearing already scheduled, or do we need to vote to make it? Oh, Jim. Thanks, Adrian.
I just have a general question about our tax stabilization policy. When we give an extra year, it's usually because they're meeting some goal. Like in this one, they're gonna have 20 employees. Who monitors that they meet these expectations? Not necessarily on this one, on any of them we grant. Who monitors that to make sure it's being met?
Yeah, good question. So the answer to that is it depends which of the criteria, because some of them are targeted specifically to the tax rate, and Marty takes care of that because he ends up being the holder of all the contracts, because Marty is our assessor, and so he takes care of it as he's doing process. But there is an evaluation that has to go through, and we don't have a lot of these, so I can't say specifically how this has been done. I think the last one we had was, we had one of those Fred Connors that may have been 7-8 years ago. So that one probably expired. And then we had one just a couple of months ago. So we only have 2 right now, I think, on the books. This would be the second one on the books, probably, I would imagine. I think Fred's is probably expired by now.
Did we do that timber?
The timber homes get one? That would have been 2017 as well. I don't know if they would have gotten up.
I was on the council when we were talking about it, so it might have been, but I don't remember if we got it or voted no. Kelly.
And between first and second hearing, I'll make sure to bring back the answer to this question.
Yeah, because the number of employees, how we certify that, and Matt is usually the one who runs these. He unfortunately can't be here tonight, but with Kelly, I'll check with him and see how we track that specific requirement in this case. Some of the other ones are easier. I know the last one which we did, which was for the new housing over the old Walgreens building. That's a lot easier for us to track because they have to build at least 15 housing units, and it has to be at least 600,000. So when they're done building it, we count the number of units. It's 15, we check the box, and then if it's more than 600,000 in the assessed value, it checks that box. And then there's no supervising that one any longer. But this one, having 20 plus employees, we would have to go and do an annual assessment to make sure that they are still continuing to meet their obligation. If they're not, what would happen is they would lose that last year. They would still continue to be having a tax stabilization. They would just automatically lose that 6th year if they fall below 20 employees.
Thank you, Mike.
Folks, anything else? So
I'm just wondering, Mike, about an incentive like 20 employees. Is that from day one, or is there a ramp up? And I mean, how is it? Just curious how it's stated in the contract.
So I would be able to grab it really quick and see how it's very specifically. Throughout the life of the tax stabilization contract, the project will result in a net increase of 20 full-time equivalent jobs, which pay at least the amount equal to the lowest full-time Montpelier City employee pay rate as of January 1st of the calendar year. Very rate will match or exceed the lowest full-time hourly rate if the employer provides benefits. So there's some stipulations and restrictions in there which we would have to obviously check that box for, but it looks like it's throughout the life of the contract. So if they had 22 and then 1 year it went to 19, I think we'd also have to look, because this is a contract that we sign with them, we would have to look at what's stipulated in the contract itself for violations and whether they have an opportunity to remedy a situation if they fall to 19 they've got to remedy that by bringing it back to 20 within a certain time period, but I'd have to read it.
Yeah, no, just following up on Jim's question, I think it's important that everybody understands, if we're going to be monitoring something like that, a number of employees, we need to have a pretty clear understanding between the parties of how that's going to happen and what happens if the goals are not, met, even if it's temporary. So, thank you.
Folks, anything else? Okay, I'll close the public hearing if I didn't already. And the question I was asking was, did we already set the second public hearing, or do we need to do that?
I don't know if it has been set. I'd have to check with Matt.
And does it take a motion to do that, or is this?
I've never done tax stable. It's been so rare that we've done tax stabilizations. I don't know specifically our process, but if you want, you can set it for the next meeting. Well, the next meeting is the
orientation.
Orientation. I don't know if we want it on the orientation. It probably isn't a long agenda item, but we also would put it to the 25th.
Probably better to put it on the 25th.
I would recommend you make a motion.
Yeah. So we want to make a motion to set a second public hearing for the March 25th meeting.
Set a second public hearing on the tax stabilization proposal for March 25th.
Yep.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, thank you. Moving along. Montpelier Community Fund Board, reappointment. One vacancy, one application. Dan Groberg is asking to be reappointed, and I do not see him online. Somebody want to make a motion to? Okay, sorry, Jim.
I just want to say, well, I recommend him totally. Because I'm a board member, I'm going to recuse myself from voting on this.
Okay, thanks, Jim. So does somebody want to make a motion to reappoint Dan to the Community Fund Board?
Reappoint Dan Groberg to the Community Fund Board.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Just a note that the community fund applications are open, pending obviously approval at town meeting day of that budget for the forthcoming year, but interested parties can look to that application form now.
Thanks. And Jim, your hand is still up. Were you going to say something else, or is that just a holdover? Okay, thanks. Don't need any further discussion except to heap praise on Dan for all the good things he does in the city. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving to item 12, update on the Country Club Road subcommittee. Adrian, are you taking this? I always get to that point.
Very slow. Like it shows on my computer, but it's taking a second. So all right, all right, so I'm going to provide an update on Country Club Road. Thank you, Jim, last meeting for kind of pushing for updates on this. There's a lot happening on this project, and so we wanted to take a pause. This is a really good stopgate to provide everyone with some important updates that are happening. So today I'm going to provide an update on the proposal status from the developers, the community engagement strategy that we are deploying, the public input tools for public input, our listening session and what that will look like, so everyone has a sense of what to expect, the committee outreach that we have planned for our city committees, timeline and next steps, and then we'll have time for council discussion. So the current status, we did receive 4 developer proposals. We had 5 that we invited, and the 5th one submitted a letter saying that they were at capacity and they were unable to accept this project. The proposals are currently up on the website for everyone to review. I highly encourage everyone to take a look at these proposals. It's very exciting. I keep going back to them and looking at them and getting more excited every time I look at them, because this is really imagining what our new neighborhood in Montpelier is going to look like. So please take some time to look at those proposals and absorb information. I will warn you, a lot of it is boilerplate information, so you can scroll down and get to the meat of the proposals and get some pictures, because people like pictures. We do have an independent financial analysis underway. Last meeting, just as a reminder, we did approve the independent financial analysis, which is really important for us as council to have an independent review of looking at all the different projects. Even though the developers were required to submit their financial analysis, we have an independent review to ensure that we're getting that independent opinion. And public feedback is open. So on our website, I put the link here, but maybe, I don't know how we let people know that, but we'll let people know what the link is on our website. You can type in the Country Club Road on the search bar, because that's what I do, and it pulls up the Country Club Road site. I don't know if there's a better way to do it, but that's how I do it. And on there is a feedback form that you can submit your feedback. So we really want to focus on community engagement. We want to take a proactive approach to making sure that everyone in our community knows that the proposals are out there. We want to give everyone an opportunity to provide input. And so we're taking a multi-pronged approach, looking at all different ways of accessibility, making sure that people have the opportunity and really different ways to engage based on where they're at and how they want to participate. So our goals for this plan is transparency and trust, making sure that everybody understands and really trusts in the process, to gather perspectives and the priorities from our community, to identify concerns and questions, and really to inform the subcommittee on our deliberations as we work through the matrix of all of these proposals. And so community input is really just one component of informing the city council, who ultimately will decide on these developers. So this is really a spectrum of input that we're taking, and community engagement is one part of it. So the community role, what we ask our community is to review the materials. I've sent out emails, I'm posting on Facebook, Front Porch Forum. I would encourage all council members, everyone that you know, to please go and take a look at these proposals. It's one of the most important projects, I think, that we have. It's going to shape really the future of Montpelier and how we are and act as a community, and bringing in new people to live here. We ask that our community share their likes and concerns, and that's part of the feedback form that Evelyn has created and put on our website. And of course, ask questions. Ask questions of us, and if we don't know the answer right off, we will be sure to investigate and get back to you with the answers. So it's really important to clarify expectations. Government, public, what is everyone's roles? And I think once we clarify expectations, hopefully it'll make the public's role much easier. So what we are asking is what I said, is to provide input, ask questions, kind of be curious about this new neighborhood. On the other side of it, what are we not asking, right? You got to look at the both sides of it. So we're not asking the community to choose a developer. We're not asking our community members to vote on a proposal. And we're not asking our community members to make any final decisions. That is in the hands of the city council. That is why you elect us, to make these important decisions and to vote on a final developer, which will happen in April. But we love your input. We are here to serve the public. We love to hear what you have to say, what you like, what you don't like, and what your questions are. That helps us as a city council, make our decisions. So there's multiple ways to participate in this community engagement process. As I said, there is an online form. Evelyn designed it so beautifully where you can go in by each 4 developers and you can say what you like, what you don't like, and provide your input segmented by developer. So it should be really easy, and you just hit submit and we get all the input, and we'll be taking a look at every single information that is submitted. The Zen City QA platform, I'm looking at you, Evelyn, okay, so this is really exciting. So I get really geeky about technology. So we do have Zen City, which is a technology that we pay for, which is a really good tool. And we haven't used this part of the technology, I think, to the robustness of what we can. So what we want to do is have this opportunity for the public to ask questions. So you can submit a question, then on the back end, we are going to review it, the subcommittee and our consultants at White and Burke. We will draft an answer and it'll be up online as a running FAQ. So it's a very, very simple form. Ask your questions and you will get the answer. And really the fun thing about this is that everyone can see everyone's questions and everyone's answers. So it's really transparent, everyone, because if you have a question, I'm sure your neighbor has the same one. So let's make it, available to everybody. So we're using that platform for this process, which I'm really excited about. And the FAQs will be updated on the website. Evelyn does a fantastic job of keeping that website updated, and we'll have the Q&A from Zen City put up there. Another really fun thing, it's all about fun tonight. It's 8:15 on a Wednesday night. So one of I think this is really cool, is to have a video, right? Because everyone learns in different ways. Some people like to read 40 pages of proposals. I particularly don't, because I don't process information that way. I would love to watch a video. And so our consultants working with city staff are putting together I have no idea how long it's going to be. I saw the outline today, and it could be anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes. But they're working on a video that just tells you, here's the 4 proposals, here's what's in them. There's no opinion in that video. It's really laying it out in the facts so that you can really enjoy learning about these proposals in a video format. So that should be coming soon. It'll be posted up on the website. And we're going to be using that video in committee. So I'm going to just remember the video description because I'm coming back to that. And then on March 12th, we are having a listening session, which I'll give you the details about that in a second. So once again, just to reiterate, we do have online resources. The 4 proposals are up there. We have the input form, the Zen City Q&A, which I described, the FAQ page. The process video is going to be up there for everyone's viewing enjoyment. And we have the deadline set for March 13th, 2026 at 5 p.m. So all your input should be the talking points. Watch the video, come to our listening session, and submit your input online using the input form. That is what we want everyone to do, is channeling the input through that online form. So the video overview, we're going to have the purpose of the video. We're going to explain the process and timeline, clarify the community role, share milestones and off-ramps, address any common questions that the community has, and that really just expectation setting is so important for this project. It could be anywhere from 5 to 10 years. It could be, we could have buildings in 2 to 3 years, but there's multiple decision points along our path where we could potentially have off-ramps. We can make critical decisions. There's a lot that happens in a construction project between, 3 years ago and the next 5 years. And so it's really important for the public to understand that it's not just a one and done. There's a lot of studies that need to happen. There's a lot of permitting. And I don't know all these technical terms, Mike. I'm talking from a very, kindergarten level over here, but that's where our community's at, is that this is the expectation, is that we're not going to get these proposals, have them accepted in April, and you're going to see housing built in May or June. Like, that is not the expectation. I think that's what I hear a lot, and that's just, it's not reality. So the outreach plan, trying to take a multifaceted plan here once again, and we came up with a list. So take a look at this list. Everyone here, we missed someone, we could definitely add them, but we will be sharing the video. Remember that beautiful video that will be part of our outreach communications plan, and we'll be sharing that as far and wide as we can. The video and the input form are the two main pieces with our front porch forum postings. We have NeighborNet. We will be sharing them with state representatives, our Central Vermont Chambers, CVRPC. We'll be sending them to the city committee chairs, and we'll be asking them to share the video in their meeting, and then encouraging all members of the committee to complete that form. It is going to have the same talking points all throughout this time. Watch the video, complete the form. So we're targeting all the city chairs to please watch that with their committees and complete the form. I'll be going to the school board, presenting to the school board, making sure that that whole world knows. I'm sharing it with Montpelier Live so they can post it up on their website, putting it in the Department of Housing and Community Development newsletter, and having a QR code just for ease of distribution. And we did talk about creating little postcards and putting them around businesses by the cash register so that people can scan the QR code to the input form. Everything is going to be funneled to the input form. That's where our information is going to be. So please mark your calendars, March 12th, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Montpelier High School. We are going to host a community forum, and we're going to spread this as far as wide as possible. This is our in-person opportunity. So for folks that don't want to go through the proposals online, that the video is kind of boring and they don't want to sit and watch it, this is the time to interact with humans and ask questions and feel that community, engagement. So please, encourage everyone to come March 12th. And the structure of this will be, we will show the video. Who could have guessed that? The video will be shown. So we will show that video as the overview, as the foundation of what, we're trying to keep this as consistent as possible. We will talk about the community role, what the expectations of the community is. We'll have table discussions. We're going to put the pictures of the proposals on easels. So we'll have 4 easels spread around the cafeteria and the high school. We will have folks at each of those boards we're not going to engage in discussion. We'll be taking questions because not everyone is experts in all of these proposals. So we don't want to share information, but we will have Post-its where we will collect their likes, their dislikes. We will collect questions in a Post-it format. So if folks don't want to go on a computer, they don't want to, complete that online form, we can collect it in written form too and input it into the form ourselves. Once again, we'll have the QR code for submissions for ease. And we can also have a computer there that day in case, just for access, if someone wants to complete the input form during that time. Trying to make this as easy as possible. Facilitation, Mike, Matt, Brian, and we'll have one more person. I put TBD, I don't know who that is, but maybe one of the subcommittees will be there. Maybe Kelly could be there just to facilitate and from a staffing perspective, be there to, kind of get things set up. And then Sal, Ben, and myself, part of the subcommittee, we will be there. And of course, all council, everyone is welcome to attend. You should all come and attend this wonderful event. We will have a prep meeting on March 11th to really finalize the facilitation for this. And we'll have talking points and some FAQ guidance for that event coming up. And so documentation, all the feedback will be captured. As I said, we'll have Post-its that people want to write stuff down, they can do that. Orca Media will be there reporting the presentation portion of it. The facilitators will have summaries, and all this will be integrated with the online form. Everything is going to the form. That's where it is funneling. So timeline, the proposals were received on February 18th. Our public input, it's a pretty short amount of time, especially when the school break is right now and a lot of people are gone between now and next Wednesday. So I would say after next Wednesday, let's do a big push when folks are back from break because the public period ends March 13th. Our public input session is March 12th. The deadline is the 13th at 5 o'clock. So it's really kind of a condensed timeline, but I think if we, stick to our communications plan, we can get out there and get as many audience members engaged and involved as possible. We'll have our listening session on the 12th. The input closes on the 13th. Then between the 16th and April 3rd, the city may hold interviews with selected proposals. We still have to decide what that process looks like in terms of interviews. And then on April 22nd, the city council will vote on a developer to engage in a development agreement to start the whole next process, which I don't know what that is, but I'm sure it's very complicated and convoluted and a multi-year process. But April 22nd is a big day when we choose the developer and we kickstart the whole next phase of this process. So between now and March 13th, please, everyone help full court press here to continue the outreach and let people know that these proposals are online. We have the online form, the videos coming. We'll constantly update the FAQs through our online Q&A format. We will prepare for the listening session. We're going to support the committee meetings. As I said, we have a list of committees. We'll be sending the video, the form, kind of making sure everyone is aware, and we'll monitor the Zen City questions and the review process. The city staff and the subcommittee were reviewing the proposals, and we have a meeting tomorrow, which will be looking at the matrix to go through the selection process. And you can see the criteria. It's all online. Based on that criteria, that is how we're doing the matrix to go through the review process. So that is important. It's all out there. You can take a look at it, how we're going to be reviewing these proposals. So in closing, our commitment is to, have this process be as transparent as possible. I think to be as equitable and accessible to everyone to participate is really important, to really have a meaningful engagement process and a thoughtful evaluation of the proposals, and to have clear communication of next steps. And so that is my overview of where we are.
Thank you. That's a lot. This is great. Thanks, Adrian. Jim, you've got your hand up first.
Adrian, that was an awesome presentation. Thank you so much. I also want to thank the committee for granting my request to put out some transparency to the public. I think this is great. How you've chosen how to do it. It's awesome. And just one question now. People asking questions. Are they required to submit a name? Can it be anonymous or both?
Evelyn is telling me that it is set up to be anonymous.
Okay, awesome. Thanks again. Great job, the three of you. Awesome.
So
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. That was
I'm sure I missed something.
no, very, very exciting and energetic presentation. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the deadline. The deadline of March 13th is, it's a real deadline, but it's kind of a soft deadline. The reason it's there is that beginning the following week, we're going to start sending questions to the developers. In fact, we're already doing that and interviewing developers. And the more input we have before that time, the better able we'll be to tease out the information we need, and that the community is telling us they'd like to get from the developers themselves. So I don't know whether the form will shut down on the 13th, but you can certainly email me if you want to on the 14th or thereafter. But the earlier we get the input, the better able we'll be to address people's questions and concerns with the developers over the next 2 weeks. As we're pushing toward this April 22nd decision, there's not a lot of time between now and then. We'll also, we need the input also, because once we choose a developer, assuming we're able to do that, the development agreement is where we can make adjustments. I mean, what we have in the proposals is what the developers think we want. We gave them an RFP. They've interpreted it, and they've presented their vision of what we want. But we need to know where they missed the mark. If people think they missed the mark, what's missing, what's there that we wish wasn't there. So we need comments about everything people have concerns or questions about, so that when it comes time to hammer out that development agreement, we have all the information we need to do the best job, of meeting the community's vision for what's going to happen up there.
Okay.
Adrian, that was awesome in like the biblical sense. I mean, but I also just want to say, I think it's really important to pause here and like recognize that we got like 4 serious proposals from serious people, right? Which I think we should take as a vote of confidence in the work that we've done to get to this point. You know, these people did not spend their time and money putting together these proposals because they think this is a foolish idea. They recognize it as the opportunity that it is. And I'm just really glad that we're going to be able to have a kind of community-wide conversation that takes it seriously. And then just the last thing I do want to say is, I love the pictures. I love looking at the pictures. But I also want people to like ask questions about the math, right? Like, I think that it really this will come down to pretty pictures and math, right? And so let's make sure that we dig into that. And even the boilerplate stuff. Yeah, it's boilerplate, but boilerplate's important. It shows like a history of what people have accomplished and done, and who's on their team and all of those kinds of things. So I would really encourage folks to dive deep into these. There's certainly the opportunity to do so. They're very rich. But I most importantly, I just want to acknowledge the work of staff, council, before and now to get us to this point, because it's real.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Great presentation, just amazing amount of work. I really appreciate everything that you on the subcommittee did to put into this, on top of all your other city council work and your day jobs. And I think it's just a great thing overall. I have a couple of comments or questions. One is for members of the public who are looking for an accessible way into what's been proposed. The Montpelier Bridge has an article that's online now that describes in a few pages all the proposals. I haven't gone through it word by word to see how it matches up with the proposals, but I think it's a good entry into what's been proposed. I would really encourage us to, as much as possible, have an opportunity for paper inputs, because there are people who can't deal with, for whatever reason, can't deal with going to a computer and putting that in. And then last thing is a very small thing. Farmers market is going first and third Saturdays of each month. If there's a way to get set up at the farmers market to go where people are and set up the displays and get input from people there too, I think that's a great opportunity, because we all know thousands of people go to the farmers market. But the message for me is great work. Yes, Carrie.
Yeah, thanks to all of you for doing all this amazing work, and I appreciate the reminder, Ben, that this is not a silly idea that we have. This is that all the work we put into it is really being recognized, and that it's very confidence inspiring, very exciting $1 proposals to think about all these things that might be able to happen there. You also made the point about math, and that is where it gets a little fuzzy for me, and I'm going to be relying on this financial analysis that's going to be done. So I'm wondering about the timing of that, and when we'll have that, and when the public will have access to that as well, and how it will be presented, and
I think we're scheduled to have that on the 13th. Yeah. Assuming that everything goes as planned, he can get all the information. But yeah, we're all relying on that. It's important. Partly, we're looking at capacity do the companies have in fact the capacity to do what they say they can do? And then are their numbers realistic? So on.
It's important too to acknowledge right up front, though, in a transparent way, there are going to be some financial information that will not be shared publicly. That's, you know, proprietary, confidential information, you know, even in the proposal, so you can see it, right? There are kind of confidential sections, and I think we're going to the degree possible, we're going to share everything that we can, certainly make some informed decisions, but I think I've not seen it up yet, but I would assume that there are going to be parts that are remain confidential. And additionally, there are going to be parts, I think we haven't discussed this, we're going to discuss it tomorrow at our subcommittee meeting, but you know, there probably will be executive session conversations that need to happen where, you know, again, there's kind of proprietary confidential information that needs to be considered. Certainly deliberative process and decision-making, you know, will be public, but I think we should just all be upfront about the kind of nature of the evaluation that we're making and the process for making determination.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that at tomorrow's meeting, our 8 o'clock subcommittee meeting, we likely will go into executive session at some point because all but one company has made their financials confidentiality, and some for some other things too. So you know, that'll happen tomorrow for some portion of the meeting. Don't know how much of it, and probably future meetings, at least some portion of those meetings where we have to discuss that. Certainly when we get the financial analysis, certain parts of it will probably have to remain confidential, but we're going to try and put everything we possibly can out for public inspection. Adrian.
Just 2 more things I really forgot to include. Mike and Matt, I think, are going to be tabling at town meeting day, right?
Yeah.
Yes. So forgot to put that in there as part of our community outreach. So they'll have a table set up in City Hall. Evelyn's going to do it. Evelyn, okay. So come on out when you vote. Come inside. There'll be a table. We'll have information. You can ask questions. I think that's it, right? QR code to the input form. So yes, that'll be another opportunity for input. And just the other thing I did say, Brian is going to be at our community session. I just wanted to let everyone know Stephanie Clark is going to be on medical leave for a few weeks. And so we'll have Brian Pine from White and Burke has been attending our subcommittee meetings and is fully updated on the project. So he'll be seamlessly stepping in. He'll be at the community engagement on March 12th. So that'll be a new face to the project until Stephanie returns in April. So Brian Pine will be our representative. Just wanted to mention that. Just a new face and a new name.
Great.
And finally, I also just want to acknowledge the planning team, my team, for getting in the build grant last week, which also will is requesting $5 million to fund the infrastructure to the project as well, which will be an essential component to move forward. Looking back.
When we were talking about buying this property, one of the things I said was that future generations would curse us if we let this opportunity, if we missed this opportunity or gave this opportunity away. And now I think we're at a point where future generations will thank us for having made this decision and having done this. All right. Sal, it's looking pretty good for your over under here. City council reports. You can start. You probably don't have much breath left.
No, I'll just let people know after our subcommittee meeting tomorrow, I'll be out of the office until next Wednesday. So I put my out of office on and I will not be checking email because I'll be on vacation. So
nice.
Just so everyone knows, I'm turning everything off and I will not be responding.
Carrie, before you go, I was just reminded that we have a time for public comment at this point too. Is there any public comment at this point in the room or online? Steve?
Sure, I'll speak about Country Club Road because I covered it before. This is to compress this article, you know, the statement that we will be voting. It's like, that's not a unilateral decision. That this is a bypass of the public's process to engage in community planning. This was supposed to have been done in the Montpelier City Plan. It was not. It was taken away from the Planning Commission. It was supposed to be done in the Whitenburg Phase 2 Community Master Planning process, as recommended in the report that we paid for. Then it was substituted and taken away from a mess to basically force the public to only respond to those proposals while you've got massive traffic, unknown traffic issues with Country Club Road, with massive brownfield issues. It's just reckless. It's irresponsible, and it's denying the public our right to do a moderated, slow, methodical planning process. To sell our property out from under us, you know, under this kind of rush conditions is really unjust, irresponsible, reckless. You know, the fact that none of y'all see the merit of Chapter 117, that's statute. That's how planning is supposed to happen. This is not how planning is supposed to happen. And to offer our $4 million piece of property to somebody, or the most developable part of it, for $1 is just unconscionable. You know, you don't even want to discuss or rationalize it in that context. But Chapter 117 was written for a purpose, and you're allowing staff and your subcommittee to bypass it. So, and to compress this into this little bit of time, you know, you got a week or 2 weeks to comment on it, and we're gonna give your land away. I mean, a petition of so many signatures can stop the transfer of this land. I hope you're aware of that.
Thanks, Steve. Karen.
I just wanted to say welcome to Kelly. I'm so glad that you're here. And I've enjoyed the little bit we've worked together so far, and I'm really looking forward to the future. And also just to thank Jack for his service as mayor. And I appreciate you being the mayor, from your contributions to the city as mayor and as city council member and so many other ways.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
I just want to welcome Kelly as well. This will probably be the earliest you get out of here. But it's great to have you here. It's been fun. What interaction we've had so far. Really looking forward to it. So, Ben.
Yeah. About 15 years ago, I had the chance to play on the Supreme Court softball team, even though I'm not an attorney and not in the Supreme Court. But it was a great group of people, and we were studied by the starting pitcher for that team, which was Jack McCullough, who I had never met before. But Jack was a steady presence as our starting pitcher and a tenacious ball player. There were more than one time I cringed as I saw him diving for first base. And I just have seen that kind of same steadiness and tenaciousness here in my time with Jack. I just want to acknowledge your service, Jack. You know, I haven't always agreed with you. But when I think about what you face as mayor in this city, COVID, police reform, a flood, a new city manager, and Country Club Road, that's really one of the most consequential mayoral terms in a generation. And I just want to thank you for your service to the city and for all you do.
Thanks, Ben.
And welcome, Kelly.
Yeah. Jim.
Just want to say welcome, Kelly, and I need to go make a health call, so I'm going to cut out at this point. But great presentation, Adrian. Thank you very much for doing it.
Thanks, Jim.
Jim.
Mayor's report. Well, I have a couple of things to talk about. One is as an update on the lawsuit of Stephen Whitaker versus City of Montpelier et al. We received a decision from the court on February 23rd. And that decision does a couple of things. One, it dismisses the claims that were personal to me from the case, and that was something we knew was going to happen because it's mandated by state law. Second, with regard to the claims in the case, the count 3, which related to this sole source contract, and count 4, which relates to state environmental rules, essentially. In both cases, the court found that there's no basis for a private individual, such as the plaintiff, to go to court to order the relief that he was requesting. And so counts 3 and count 4 were dismissed. Count 1, the open meetings law count, and count 2, the Public Records Act count, were not dismissed. No, the court may have no opinion as to the merits of those claims, and we'll have to be litigating those claims in the future. We're confident in the outcome. The other thing I will mention regarding litigation, and I realize I should have mentioned this a while back, is that you all may remember that there were a couple of meetings in which Mr. Whitaker made a big show of walking up to the front of the room and plopping stacks of papers in front of me and in front of the city clerk, claiming that we had been served. And on one occasion, in one of these meetings, I stated to the council and to the public that we had not been served. And in response to that, Mr. Whitaker filed a bar complaint against me, saying that I had been dishonest in asserting that we had not been served. And the day I received the bar complaint from the bar council, the bar complaint was dismissed as having no merit. So that's the first item on the Whitaker case. There's obviously going to be more to come about that. Second, I encourage everybody to pick up the annual report and read it. This is, you'll see on the inside, dedicated to Bill Fraser, who had been our city manager for 30 years and just gave excellent, incomparable service. Everything about the budget you could want to know is in here. Everything about the ballot that you could possibly want to know is in here. And last year, our annual report was voted the annual report of the year by the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. Mostly credit to Evelyn. I want to give Evelyn the credit. This year, I think it's even better. And one of the things that makes it even better is that we have color on the inside. Wow. So get out there and read this. There's a lot of valuable information in there. Third, just want to reflect a little bit. I think, Ben, I think you're right. This has been just the most concentrated and condensed set of challenges that the city has faced in the 8 years that I've been here, with COVID, the flood, another flood, fire, homelessness. All of these have had terrible impacts on our budget. And I think we can be proud of how the city responded to these challenges. And a lot of what enabled us to do this and have an effective response to these challenges has been all the employees of the city. I start with Bill Fraser, worked for us for 30 years. Kelly Murphy, Chris Lumbra, and Evelyn Prim, all of whom stepped up when we really needed somebody great to manage the city's operations. But beyond that, all the department heads, every department we have has more work to do than they have the resources to use them, and the department heads provide great leadership for the departments, carrying out the demands that we as city council place on them. And that goes for all the city employees. Our city employees mobilized to respond to the flood. Our city employees from Public Works are out there knee deep in water to deal with the water main breaks. They're out there night and day plowing, and this year especially, it's been a lot. Our city employees put themselves in harm's way to respond to crises and crimes, including one point a year or so ago where there was actually a standoff with an armed assailant, and they were out there responding to that. Our city firefighters were out there in freezing cold fighting the fire at home at HK Miles, or RK Miles, sorry, working with and coordinating with the fire departments all around us. And everyone else showing up every day, balancing the budget, managing purchases, payments, receipts, interacting with the public, all the while being overworked and understaffed. So we couldn't have the quality of life that we have in the city without all the great city employees that we have. And the same goes for all the elected officials. Everyone here on the council puts in incredible number of hours. Don't bother trying to figure out what your hourly rate is. But all the city committees and everyone else who does great work for the city, I really appreciate all of that. And finally, I think there are some real reasons for optimism from where we are now. We've been through some very tough times and we're not out of them, but we continue to make progress on major infrastructure projects. East State Street, we're moving along. We're going to be starting construction this year. The Water Resource Recovery Facility and Home Farm Way, which we just heard about tonight. All of these are going to be great projects that are really going to make a difference for the city. We're making major progress on housing, Country Club Road, which we heard about tonight. Other innovative proposals such as tax stabilization in the Walgreens building, working with developers to do other housing like the Isabel Circle project, which we're still hoping to bring in. And finally, we have taken steps just in the past few months, and I hope even when I'm gone, you'll continue it, to move back to a culture of civility and open communication, which will benefit everyone in our community, because we need to get away from the poisonous tone that we have had. And I think we're going to do that. And I think everyone on the council is committed to doing that. So thank you to everyone. It's been great for doing this. Thank you. All right, that brings us to clerk's report.
Couple things. First of all, welcome aboard. And Jack, it's been a pleasure. I'll be seeing plenty of you though, so you still got you for the BCA and the DOA. Yep. Still chair that, yep. And it's I should mention that Jack is the one who talked me into running for city clerk.
Never regretted it. You may have.
Just a note, if you're curious about how the election's going, it's going very, very slowly. We have very low turnout so far. The numbers, the ratios, which have always been pretty consistent, stay true. We're going to have a very low turnout annual city meeting. So I encourage people to come out and vote so that we don't look bad. I don't know why that is. It's interesting. But anyways, that's it.
All right. City manager's report. You're first.
You're my first, and I'm glad you and I overlap.
Yeah, me too. I was really hoping that we would get a new city manager before I left, and I think we did a great job of picking someone.
Well, thank you. Well, I'm very happy to be here. I don't know how these normally go, but I'll just report out that kind of what I've worked on the last week, this week, and looking ahead is some of my initial priorities. But I was able to spend time with each of you in the last week, as well as most of the department heads. I'll be rounding out my one-on-ones with department heads here in, I think by tomorrow. I attended the District 2 listening session that also took place in this room that Sal and Palin hosted, and I was able to get some feedback directly from some of the residents of that district, and enjoyed going to that. If there are similar opportunities in the district, I'm happy to be invited. Let me know. Thank you to all who connected me with individuals throughout the community. I am trying to do my best to meet as many of sort of our stakeholders, institutional leaders, et cetera, early on in my tenure here. We had some things come up last week. Again, I mentioned the Build grant, which was great. Our delegation submitted a letter of support for that as well. Those are competitive and we'll have some good stuff. So a good outcome from the federal dollars. We had a number of public records requests that came in that staff was juggling, including an appeal that I needed to respond to. Wednesday's water shut off, which was unplanned and a result of a planned repair. I think we learned from that and we're trying to communicate better. I know Public Works is looking at some improved standard operating procedures to avoid that in the future. And I've committed with Montpelier Alive to kind of better coordination with their calendars and events and our planned work. And so looking forward to figuring that out and doing better. This week we had a successful repair on Bar Street here, which was a planned maintenance that went well. The communications went well, letting people know when the water shutdown was happening and then when it came back on, which is also an important thing for the public to know. We have a number of updates from departments. Our emergency shelter in City Hall has been operating a few days. So Monday night it was open, and I'm told that it is expected to be possibly be open Friday, Sunday, and Monday of this coming weekend as well, due to cold weather. The senior center here has registration opened as of Monday for 44 spring classes, and they're processing those registrations in person and online. The rec center has opened their camp registration for summer camp and swim lessons this summer as well. We received a grouping of applications for the finance director position. We had 25 people apply. And the recruiting firm that we're continuing to work with forwarded 11 for us to, Tanya and I, to review. Tanya's on vacation this week, well deserved, and during her kids' break. And so we'll look at those together next week. I am going on a tour with Alec tomorrow, around to a bunch of the parks, looking forward to that, and then meeting with our representative and Connor Casey at the State House for a tour on Friday as well. I am prioritizing getting up to speed on the fire union contract, which I understand is outstanding and which we have some timelines which we need to move forward on. And so that is on my list of things to attend to. And then for future agendas, I think one of my goals working with you all, and we'll discuss this more fully during council orientation, is to understand how we can better plan out our future agendas so that we can look ahead on the calendar for what might be coming. You all can start thinking about information and questions that you might want us to be prepared to answer as we develop those agendas. Some of the things on it, I think that it will be coming more quickly than others. Our council orientation we'll do on March 11th. I'm hoping for that to be a very engaging, interaction with you all, and working with Evelyn and new mayor to help prepare that. So I'm looking forward to having that be my first one. A zoning fee study, which I know you all have requested. Sprinkler ordinance, looking at the sprinkler requirements for housing, the parks designation that we discussed earlier, education about the CHIP program. I've heard that from a number of you wanting to understand that better. And so I want to make sure that we're all on the same page about how that operates. The allocation of the local options tax as well is on our horizon to figure out how we wish to make that in a more formal matter. And then I think that's it for now. Oh, and we have one more just item that I circulated around to you, which was a request for a letter of support. This came to us from Montpelier Alive. They want to apply to a grant for the Vermont Arts Council Animating Infrastructure grant that would allow them to paint some of the crosswalks in the downtown area this summer. I thought this was a pretty visible project that you would see, that it made sense to bring it forward to you and see if there's direction for the mayor to sign this letter of support on council behalf. They have been coordinating with Public Works, and Public Works has said that the final design for that will have to get approved by them. And so I want to check in with you all and see if there's any questions. They are hoping to submit this grant next week.
Okay. You all might not get out as early as you think, because it looks like the book didn't make the rounds. So there will be some signing.
All right, thank you. So I see some nodding. Any questions about that letter? We'll have prepare it on letterhead for the mayor's signature. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, and I guess I'll say for the last time, at 8:58 p.m., we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.